We're back in Insurgency Sandstorm today, and I'm going to show you a quiet little achiever that sits in the shadow of something like the AUG or the M4. Just sits there nice and quietly, and that goes about its business. That is the G3, and I think you can consider this as a starting weapon. Very underrated in my opinion. Hope you're going to enjoy it. Let's do it! So the G3 originally was designed in the 1950s by Heckler and Koch, just after the Second World War. Generally, it is rifled in 7.62 by 51mm NATO and is described as a select fire battle rifle. So today, what we're going to concentrate on is the one that's in Insurgency Sandstorm, and that is the G3A3. Now, there are a number of different versions of this gun, right up to the 90s with the G36. That's not the one we want the G3, so it can be a little confusing and it will be called different things in different games, so just be aware of that. But we want the G3A3, yes we do. So it's described as a well-known 1963 version of the G3, drum sights with improved front sights, a flash suppressor, muzzle brake capable of firing NATO standard grenades. Ooh, that sounds good. A fixed solid plastic buttstock and a plastic handguard, so that you don't contact the free floating barrel. Handguard came in a slim ventilated version and a wide version, and it allows the attachment of a bipod if you like. There you go. So I've been playing around with the G3. It's one of those assault rifles in the rifleman class that I started with, kind of progressed to something like an AUG or an M4, and then the Tavor, etc, etc, and then forgot a lot about it for a little while. But I've actually came back to the weapon, and I'm really enjoying using it. And I think, like I said in the intro, you could consider this as a fairly solid starting weapon if you're just learning the game and you want something that's totally reliable and fires straight and can kill people in 2 or 3 shots, or enemies in 2 or 3 shots. So if that's the gun for you, you keep watching and we'll get into the mix and break down the stats, and then show you a couple of loadouts that you can potentially maybe consider. So when you're choosing the G3, make sure you're not choosing the G36K. You want the G3A3 as far as the rifle we're going to talk about today. A little bit confusing because I think both of those rifles are in the rifleman class. Both of the assault rifles are in the rifleman class, so it can be a little bit confusing, but we're looking for the G3A3. Okay, so before we do anything, let's jump in and have a look at some of the stats. I've designed a new slide for you guys. It's no end to what I'll do to help you out. So, as I said earlier, traditionally the G3A3 or the G3 is calibered in 7.62 by 51 NATO, and you can see in this game it is exactly the same. It's got a fire rate of 500 rounds per minute. Now, if you were watching my stats video a few weeks back, I did explain that 500 rounds per minute only applies when you're in full auto, so keep that in mind. The velocity is 800 meters per second, and the penetration is 405. Horizontal recoil is quite high at 15, and the vertical recoil is also pretty high at 29. Comes with a standard 20 round mag and has 2 fire modes. So what I wanted to then do is go on and give you some comparison rifles to look at versus the G3A3, and I've also dropped in the M4A1 there too. I've tried to keep these the Mark 17, which is effectively the Scar, and the Tavor 7. I've tried to keep the caliber the same so that you can get a direct comparison, and you can see with both the Scar and the Tavor, the G3 has got a slower rate of fire, which is never not necessarily a bad thing. It generally means that you can keep the recoil under a little bit more control. you can see with the both the Scar and the Tavor that the velocities are very similar to the G3, and we'll talk about the M4 in a second because it's a different caliber. But the penetration is very, very similar to the Tavor 7. It's a bit better than the Mark 17. And the horizontal recoil is a bit less than the Tavor, and so is the vertical recoil. Whereas the Scar is a little bit better with recoil patterns. They're all kind of standard 20 round mags, so that's nothing. And let's have a look at a direct comparison with the M4. Well, the M4 fires a bit quicker, has a higher velocity but a lower penetration. But the big thing about the M4 is its horizontal recoil is very, very low in comparison to the G3A3. So I thought it was interesting just to put a couple of rifles together just to give you a kind of feel of where this sits in comparison to some of these others. If you've been used to using them. I have already done weapons guides on both the M4A1 and the Tavor 7. So if you want to get a feel for how those rifles handle, please watch those videos. Okay, so let's go and shoot a gun against the wall and just see what it does. So this week I'm even giving you a different piece of wall to look at. How exciting is that? And you can see in full auto, it's not too bad. It's actually pretty vertical. I have got heavy carrier on this week just so I've got more bullets to waste. But yeah, it kind of pushes up into the left, and that's the little bit of horizontal recoil coming into play. Let's go single fire and just see what happens. Reload. There we go. It's not bad. You can keep it on the spot. Actually, if you use your stick, your right stick, you can pretty much keep it on the spot. So there is our baseline. Let's start chucking some attachments on and see what we can come up with. So generally, how do I run this gun? Well, I'm going to run my favorite sight, that 1x2x OKP7. I'm used to running this now. I was a hollow guy. I think you've got to run the compensator just to get that horizontal recoil under control. Now, I'd suggest when you first start out, you might want to consider the recoil grip, but I also think the aiming grip is worth a look, and we're going to do comparisons on both. So we'll put the recoil grip on for now. For sure you need extended mags, and that's pretty much all you need to do. That's all I would suggest if you are starting out this rifle and starting out the game. That's the loadout I suggest you can use. So okay, what's that done to the recoil pattern now? And you can see it's not kicking up the wall nearly as far now. And keep in mind, this is full auto. You can pretty much keep it on the spot. I know the recoil grip is probably a little bit expensive, but it's well worth it. So let's now put the aiming grip on, and I'll come back and show you the comparison. Okay, so recalibrated the aiming grips on. And you can see there isn't a huge difference there. And given that the aiming grip costs the same, and it might get you out of trouble in close quarters situations, it might be worth a viable option for you to do. So up to you how you want to run it. You know, the aiming grip might be if you're being fairly aggressive and you want to run around and you're used to running into buildings and challenging the enemy, then the aiming grip might be a better option for you. But I think if you're starting with this rifle, put the recoil and the compensator on, and just get used to the rifle, and then you can tweak it beyond there once you get more confident with the weapon and get used to it. Okay guys, that's it. The G3, my latest rifle that I'm using quite a lot at the moment, and I really do love it. I find it just, I don't know what it is about it. If you use the recoil setup on it, it is pinpoint accurate. It drops enemies quickly. even close up, it seems to do a good job. And as you've seen in the footage at the start of this episode, it actually has very good penetration through certain surfaces, and you can kill enemies in cover, and that's what I like about it. All round a quiet achiever, as the thumbnail says, and I hope you give it a go. If you do, let me know down in the comments below. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe, because I'm reliably told that it will give you a 20% increase in getting higher XP. And our like rating is always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Gaming for XP. I'll see you.